So welcome back everyone to the channel. Today I have a guest. I'm very happy to have Rick here on the channel, and we are going to talk about The Witcher and the Sword of Destiny book. Looks like this. And we're going to talk about Bounds of Reason and also talk about The Witcher game, compare it a little bit. So welcome, Rick, and you can tell us a bit about who you are if some of the viewers have watched you last time.
Sure, yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me back on the channel. It was really great to chat with you the last time, and I've continued to enjoy watching all of your videos. I am a big fantasy nerd and lover, and I've been reading kind of fantasy more seriously for only maybe the past 5 or so years. But The Witcher was one of the series that I really started to dive into as an adult. I played all three main games, and I've read all the books, and I'm a big fan. And yeah, I started watching your channel, I think, shortly after it started, and been interacting with you a bunch, and started reading Malazan because of you, which I've been really enjoying too. So it's nice
Yeah,
to be here.
yeah, nice to have you here. And this is just great that we have met through during the digital age, you could say.
Mhm.
And that is one idea with my channel, to connect with Rick, and also with other people, of course, and other booktubers, or maybe even people who are making video game videos, at least on storytelling. So the idea is not to become big. Maybe it will happen one day, but it's the social media thing I'm in for here. So it's great to have you here on the channel as well. And the last video we made, many people watched that video, so I hope you are watching this. You are watching, or maybe you watched last video, and if you didn't, you can watch another video which we recorded earlier. We're going to start to talk a bit about Bounds of Reason, and Rick, do you want to start a little bit to maybe frame the story?
Sure.
We can do it together, of
Yeah.
course. So.
Yeah. So The Bounds of Reason is the first short story in the second book of short stories by Sapkowski. And we both really liked this short story because it takes a lot of the big themes that you see throughout the Witcher books and games, and all of them you find kind of in this story. It's also a very long short story. It's about 83 pages, I think, but it does a lot within those 83 pages. So it's a really great story overall. And it starts, I guess, with Geralt on another mission. He's I think in a mine or something like that, and fighting a basilisk, and there's all these townsfolk that are waiting for him outside, and some of these townfolk start saying, like, he died, we should just steal his stuff and move on. And as they're debating that, this mysterious figure comes up with these two, like, barbarian warrior women and prevents them from stealing Geralt's stuff. And then Geralt comes out victorious from killing the basilisk, and gets his payment. And that's kind of the opening, which is kind of a fun opening to the story, I think.
Yeah, and just before we continue, so people are watching, this will be full spoiler, because otherwise it will be
Right.
difficult to talk about the short story,
Yeah.
just as you know. So if you don't want to know what happens in this short story, you should turn off now. So
Yeah.
yeah, good summary there, I think, Rick. And the this short story, I think, is it's not very special, but it's kind of special, because when I read these short stories first, you were one of those recommending me to read Witcher. I really like this story. I think it has a lot of the storytelling that Sapkowski used it in other short stories and also in the books. And it also introduces many characters that we get to know in the books and also in the video game. You have read all the Witcher books, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm at the Times of Content, right?
Right. Yeah. So I will keep that in mind too.
Yeah, just started, so it's somewhere here. Yeah, Time of Content is here. So, and I'm also exploring the game for those who don't know that, and also playing the board game. But we will skip the board game for today, I think. So, just talk about maybe we'll touch on the board game. Who knows?
Sure.
The idea with this short story is for them, they meet Borch,
Yeah.
Thea.
3 jackdaws.
Yeah, exactly. Three jackdaws, right? Is
Mhm.
his pet name? No, like his name.
Yeah. 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 And then, yeah, Tia and what was her other name? What was the other one's name? Tia
Via,
and Leah?
Via.
Via. Yeah. Yeah. The 2 barbarian warriors.
Is it too early to reveal something about Borch? Do you think now? Maybe.
No, no.
I think we can just tell he's the dragon.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess kind of a quick overview. Geralt ends up traveling with this Borscht for a while, 3 jackdaws, and they end up getting sucked into this quest to hunt down a dragon for this king. And there's a bunch of different groups that are trying to hunt this dragon. There's a lot of interesting kind of drama between the different groups, especially because one of the people hunting down the dragon is Yennefer, Geralt's lover, girlfriend, longtime partner, off and on partner. And Dandelion or Dandelion is also on the quest, not to fight the dragon because that's not his thing, but just to write a ballad about it. And so they're hunting a green dragon, uh, and Borsch is kind of along the way, and you don't know he's a dragon, and he's just kind of playing like this innocent bystander who's just curious. Um, but then by the end of the story, you find out that he is also a dragon. He's a shapeshifter, and he was doing this to protect the dragon that was being hunted, and especially because that dragon had a baby, and he wanted to protect the baby. Um, and yeah, it's a really neat story that kind of like plays on one of these major themes in Witcher of like what is the monster
Mm.
and who needs protecting. I think that's kind of a central question to a lot of the Witcher world.
Mm. Yeah, and I also think that the second chapter in the short story
Mhm.
introduces a lot of themes that you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's chaos and order. Which side are you on? Which one do you support? Because Geralt he don't kill dragons. That's very clear from the beginning. He has
Yes.
this special Witcher code, which makes me think about Bruce Wayne in Batman, and even Dexter Morgan in Dexter. Sometimes when I
Hmm.
read about Geralt, so he's very reluctant to do do this mission. And I think during the short story, there is this tension in the group. What should they do? Should they kill the
Yes.
dragon, or is the dragon a monster, as you said? And the perspective on myth, because there are characters here. I think it's Dorgaray,
Yeah.
Jennifer, and Geralt, and the dwarves, all these, the big bunch of people.
Yep. The
They have
Reavers.
all different theories on how to approach this dragon, what to do.
Hmm. Yeah. And well, and then there's also the whole like throughout the whole story, they keep talking about how gold dragons don't exist. There's green dragons, there's red dragons, there's black dragons. Supposedly there's white dragons, but gold dragons are a myth, and they kind of talk about that quite a bit. And then it turns out that it's not just a myth. There is this gold dragon. So there is at least one. But yeah, the whole like philosophical debate of the forces of order versus the forces of chaos starts up really quickly with the Borscht 3 jackdaws, who's in human form, is like posing that question to Geralt, like, do you always fight to protect humans? Do you like asking Geralt kind of what his philosophy is?
Mm.
And I think Borsch kind of says in a really he kind of defines the fight between order and chaos really simply by saying chaos is menace or the aggressive side, and order is the side being threatened and in need of protection. And what's kind of curious to me that can kind of like, especially reading it the second time, gets you thinking about how he doesn't specifically say the forces of order is to protect humans. He just said it's to protect those who need protecting. And in this case, he's actually referring to the dragon. And the aggressors in this case are the humans, which I don't think Geralt picks up on. Though Geralt does often run into lots of situations like that where it's very clear that the monsters are the humans, and the supposed monster is actually kind of innocent, which I think you see in both other short stories. You see it in the main books, and you see it in the games as well.
Yeah, and you also get a perspective from Jennifer. I was looking for that in my papers, because if Geralt is, reluctant and skeptical, there are different. I mean, you get different reasons for why he's on this mission in the book or in the story as well, because it's part of his, idea to, as I understand it, getting connected to Jennifer again. Seems like a motivation for him. And then later in the short story, he's asked by the Reavers, I think, why what he's doing, and he says he wants to have something in common with people, be on a mission, have friends,
Right.
and so on. So, but Jennifer thinks that it's good to kill this dragon because the dragon is not, it's obviously evil, as I understand it, because the dragon destroys cities and settlements where humans can give birth or to can reproduce, right? So and advance civil and birth children. So, and she, as I understand it, she's a sorcerer, so she can't have children. It seems like it's also highlighted in the story. So it seems like a driving factor for her to portray dragon as the biggest monster of all monsters.
And it's an interesting, with like she goes on this like monologue where she talks about how dragons are the enemies to humans because they like humans are able to be more like reproductively successful when they're in settlements instead of being nomads, and dragons are the only thing in the world that can threaten those settlements, aside from I guess other humans, which do that a lot in the Witcher world. And so she just says that we have to kill all the dragons because they're a threat to like human reproduction. And I don't know, I think part of that is her trying to like convince herself, because she wants to kill the dragon for very selfish reasons, because as she reveals later to Geralt, that by killing the dragon she can either have payment for or the necessary components for some kind of supposed procedure to restore her ability to have children. And so that's actually, I think, why she wants to kill the dragon. But it feels like maybe she's saying these things about the human race to maybe justify it better to herself, to make herself feel like she isn't being just selfish. She's protecting all of humans, not just her own ability to reproduce. But it's interesting because as soon as she's done saying that, the other wizard, Dora Gary, counters her point, and because he wants to protect, he's almost like a conservation biologist in that world. And being a conservation biologist myself, I found that very interesting.
He wants to. He doesn't want to. He talks about the natural order, right? And making sure that we need to protect these endangered species because humans have
have been killing off a lot of these species, and there's not many of them left. Dragons being one of the main ones that he talks about. So it's an interesting kind of dialogue between the two, like the sorcerer and the sorceress. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking here in the book for one quote that is interesting, because it talks about the world is Dorigare talks about the world being in equilibrium, right? So
Yes.
in peace, so everything nurture itself more or less, even when things are killed. That's part of the cycle of life, right? Or the circle of life. And then Geralt says, this is in my version, this one.
Yep.
It's on 41, and then he says, do you know what, sorcerer? One day take yourself to a mother whose child has been devoured by a basilisk and tell her she ought to be glad because thanks to that the human race has escaped degeneration. Then see what she says. Something like that.
Yeah.
So it's this ongoing philosophical debate when they are traveling to the dragon. It seems like a very dysfunctional bunch of people,
Yeah.
almost like the Vox Machina, like we talked about maybe
Uh-huh.
off when we didn't record. They seem like it seems strange that they, found each other, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like they do have these like Geralt and Dorgare have this interesting back and forth where the sorcerer is talking about his point of view of like equilibrium and protecting nature and whatnot.
Mm.
And at first Geralt says, yeah, like I remember talking to this druid once who told me the same thing, and then he got eaten by this other creature, so it did, it didn't work out well for him, which the sorcerer then like counters, but then Geralt says the thing with the basilisk. And it is a really interesting point because, one of the big differences between our world and this world is that there are terrifying and incredibly powerful magical creatures in this world that can cause a lot of destruction to humans, especially in kind of these like less well defended settlements and that sort of thing. So like we don't have basilisks that can eat people and dragons and all the different creatures that are in The Witcher. And then there's this interesting kind of idea in the Witcher world where, like, I think a number of the creatures, the monsters in the world, weren't originally there, and they came about through this magical event called the Conjunction of Spheres. So then, like, is it really an equilibrium? Because there was maybe a natural equilibrium, but then this magical event happened that threw a whole bunch of other things in it, and maybe completely disrupted the equilibrium. But then again, humans, I think, are not originally from the continent. I think they're from the world, not the continent. I don't think he ever kind of clarifies that. But yeah, so there's like a lot of complexity there on like, well, what is the natural equilibrium?
Yeah, and I read the Blood of Elves, as you know, so then I know some things about Ciri, then at least a few things about her origin, and so that's also interesting. That of course I didn't had no clue when I read it first time, so this was just
Right.
introduction for me. So it was just curious. I was curious to read it, and now when I reread the short story and have come further into the Witcher Saga books, I can see more things into the story. What they also do during their travel to this dragon is that they also negotiate the an agreement what to do when they have killed the dragon, how much percentage they will get from the bounty, so to speak. And that is something also that I disagree upon in the end of the story, because they don't want Yennefer, especially the dwarves, I think, they don't want Yennefer to help because they want all the bounty from the dragon. And the king, right, Nidamir. He because it said, at least in the beginning of the story, that he hunts this dragon to be able to marry the princess of the Malior, it's called.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the nobility there doesn't like him, so they have found a myth somewhere
Yep.
way back to what, so he can't get a hold of the princess. So that's interesting too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like it's an amusing take on that kind of classic like idea of fantasy prophecies, where these two kingdoms are, I guess, like rivals or enemies, and the one kingdom decides after the princess lost her potential partner or whatever that we're going to make up this prophecy to protect the princess so that way the nobles can keep ruling their kingdom. And they say, only a man who has slain a dragon can marry the princess. And they're thinking like, well, we're good to go because there's no dragons here and there hasn't been in forever, so no one's ever going to be able to marry the princess. Well, then a dragon shows up, and so the neighboring king is like, okay, well, I'm going to go kill that dragon so I can then marry the princess.
It's funny.
Yeah. Well, and then at the end, though, the king just decides like, well, screw that. I don't really want to kill this dragon anymore. I'm just going to go conquer that kingdom and then make them like obey me anyways.
Yeah, because he says, I have the army, so I can do whatever
Yeah.
I want. I just want her. It's for regeneration or reproduction, so to speak. And then that's also strange with the when they first meet the dragon, the first dragon they meet, because there are three dragons, but two dragons. Then they because they poison the dragon, the sheep bagger, I think it's called. Sheep bagger, and they poisoned the dragon. That's the she dragon, though.
Yes.
And she gets poisoned and falls to the ground, and then there are people that are going, close to the dragon to see that if she's dead or not, and she's not dead, so it's not a good thing to go. It wasn't a good decision to look her up, so to speak. And then she disappears because they also disappear. The Borchan, Tia, and Vera, because they come to this bridge, troll bridge, and then it's a landslide, and then I think that Borch and the two barbarian warriors disappear.
Yes.
Because he becomes the dragon, I suppose.
Yeah, because they're on this mountain path. They're going to find the dragon. It's the green dragon, the one that they're trying to kill. And there's this massive landslide, and later, and then the three jackdaws and his escort, they disappear. And then later, when he is in his gold dragon form, he reveals that he caused the landslide because he was trying to prevent them from going any further. And then he ends up challenging those who remain to fight him. And it turns out he's doing that because he's buying the she dragon, the green dragon, time. And in that time, she flies away and she's recovered from being poisoned and she leaves. Yeah. And then he ends up fighting all the different dragon hunters and just like totally destroys them. And then it ends in this big fight between the village sheep bagger and his lot, who start to gain an advantage on the dragon, but then all of the female warriors show up, and then Yennefer decides to help, and in the end the dragon is saved.
I think the last chapter in the short story took me a while to understand everything, because they turn against each other. So those who want to kill the dragon, I think it's the ravens and the dwarfs and Yennefer, I think, and it's Geralt and Dorgray and Dandelion who's tied up on a wagon, and then
Hmm.
they. I think Jennifer says she wants to kill the dragon for herself, by herself, and then she's
Hmm.
tied up, and then it's a mess. It's like a farce. I think Sapkowski's writing is like that. It's more. Do you say farce in English? I don't know. You know, like these old comedies on theaters,
Mm.
maybe in the beginning of the 1900s and so on, called what farce. I have to look it up. Swedish. This is a Swedish word, so I'm trying to be
Yeah,
Swinglish
no
here.
worries. I mean, it is a bit of a ridiculous scene because uh, Dorgary first steps
Mm,
in and says, "I'm not going to let you kill the dragon."
mm,
And the dragon hunter, like the reavers and the dwarves and Yennefer, try to attack him. Geralt steps in to defend him. Yennefer just paralyzes them with magic, and then then the dragon defenders are out of the way. They're tied up and put aside. So then
mm,
it's the reavers, the dwarves, and Yennefer. And then Yennefer's like, well, actually, now you guys need to leave too because I want to kill the dragon by myself.
mm.
So there's like a lot of backstabbing and betrayals, and yeah, and it's interesting because another one of the things that pops up a lot, I think, in this story is these sorcerers and sorceresses.
Yeah.
They are very powerful, but I think they're arrogant because of their potential power, and they put themselves in positions where their power is not actually able to save them because both Dorgary and Yennefer are overpowered by these non-magical people. I think because they're just overconfident in their abilities and they're
Mm,
not able to act quick enough to prevent themselves from being captured or taken down,
mm.
which is another kind of interesting idea.
Yeah, I think this short story captures so many interesting themes. I think especially it's good because it's with as everyone knows, I'm really fond of Steven Erickson and the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and while I mean that is many philosophical musings. The characters are
Hmm.
introverts, more or less. Not everyone, but I would say 90%, and they are thinking a lot. He puts in a lot of effort on creating lore and philosophical depth by their reasoning. But in Sapkowski's works, it's only a few lines,
Hmm.
maybe a short conversation about monsters, for example. It still
Right.
evokes this depth, I think. I think it's skillfully done, even if it's something very different from Erickson, for example. They are two very different writers, obviously. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean there are I think a lot of like different philosophical debates covered in this because there's the like what is a monster? There's the like good versus evil. Um there's a lot of questions about being different, being like a mutant, like that
Yeah.
comes up a lot.
Mm.
Um and having like the desire to belong or to be part of a group. Um there's the relationship between Geralt and Yennefer, which is very complicated and
Mm.
messy. Um, there's the idea of like conservation, of protecting these creatures. Yeah, there's a ton of different, I think, philosophical themes in this story, and then I think it also shows you a few of maybe Sapkowski's views on things because the way he paints nobility in this story and in his other work
Mm.
leads me to guess that he does not have a very high opinion of nobles, kings, queens,
Mm.
or people in power, because they're often portrayed as very selfish. They're portrayed as very callous, uncaring of like the common man and all that
Mm.
kind of stuff. I don't know, like, does that kind of come across to you when you're reading these things?
Yeah, and I think he takes sides with people who are different, who does not qualify for this elite, so to speak. I think Geralt is what I know so far. It seems
Hmm.
like a good example of this, being the different, being the other,
Yeah.
being not accepted, and the say odd rituals and ceremonies that the nobility has to to
Hmm.
prove to the general public that they are the ones chosen and so on. I think he
Right.
criticizes that throughout the story in different ways. And he also mocks a lot of things.
Yes,
And I don't
that he
know,
does.
some things I'm not sure of what he thinks really. I heard an interview because the characters are so um, distinct, so to speak, especially
Hmm.
if you read other short stories, and also when I started to read the Witcher saga. So in a way, the writing is, has gotten critique, a critique for portraying female in a bad way, or very stereotypical, and I can agree with that in
Yeah.
sort of, especially in the short stories. I don't think it's that much in the books, not yet at least.
Hmm.
Still, he also has very strong female characters like Jennifer and Ciri, which seems to be extremely independent and have a lot of power. So I'm not sure what to make out of that yet, but I listened to an interview. As we talked about before, he's a very entertaining and very special guy, it seems like.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, he says every character has a very distinct role to play. Maybe that's okay, I think. But I can understand why people can be a bit critical as well to his writing style.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. I like there are definitely moments in the short stories, especially where you do get that kind of uh, characterization of women in very stereotyped
Mm.
ways. Like even in this story, the I forget what is the name of the group they're from, Sarah Canarians.
Yeah, right. The Tia,
Um,
Tia Via. Tia.
yeah, they're dressed like quite scantily, and
Yeah.
they he kind of describes that, and so there's like that. That is a prevalent thing, I think, in the short stories, especially. But yeah, then there is this other side where he does have these pretty strong female characters who are able to defend themselves, and they're not always the damsels in distress kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it is hard to kind of know what maybe he does think in that situation.
And I'm not sure. I have a friend, and his girlfriend really likes the Netflix series, and
Okay.
that's one reason, at least according to him, is that Geralt is so sexy in the Netflix series. So maybe it seems like a reverse trope. I'm not
Interesting.
sure since I haven't read all the books, but I just,
Right.
when he told that to me, I was thinking about the characterization sometimes in the books and in the short
Hmm.
stories, and then I thought it was almost reversed then when he told her about her opinions about Geralt, and he was a bit jealous, I suppose.
That's hilarious. Yeah, because I guess they don't really talk a lot about Geralt's appearance in that way in the book. Like they describe a lot of the key features of him, like his white hair, his yellow eyes, and
Mm,
like some of the scars he has. But they don't talk about like whether or not he's, at least not from what I remember. It has been a while since I've read the series, but
mm,
I don't remember there being a lot of description about how attractive he might have been and that sort of thing.
mm,
Um, but I mean, he does have his moments of being kind of a ladies' man, and
mm,
you are able to play that out in the game somewhat too.
mm.
The first game especially had some like pretty wild things you can do. Like there were lots of, not even romance, but uh like you could you could have Geralt sleep with various women, and anytime you did in that game, you got like a card that was like an achievement kind of thing. So there were like some,
Mm.
more raunchy components to that,
Yeah.
especially in the games. But yeah, that is kind of funny about the Netflix show.
Yeah.
This
I think
short
it's
story is an
yeah.
episode in the Netflix show. I think personally, I thought they did a horrible job with this short story in that,
Mm.
but it is one of the ones that they have a whole episode on.
Yeah, and I think that's just important for those watching the video to hear that we see that too. If someone is a bit critical to his writing and so on, so I think that's just important to say, of course.
Yeah.
But shall we go over to the games, the video games
Sure.
more? Because Bounds of Reason, I think it was such a great story because it summarized so much of the Witcher feeling. I started to play the game first, and then you among others recommended me to read the books. I feel there is a lot of Bounds of Reason in the Witcher games. Also, have you thought about that, Rick? The relationship between the book and the game, especially Bounds of Reason.
Yeah, I do think that theme of like order, like who is order, who is chaos, what is the monster, I think comes up in the game in a ton of places, because there are a number of times in the game where you might end up defending what humans might consider a monster from humans who are acting monstrously. So I do think that pops up a lot, um, and of course I think like as you learn about Geralt's relationship with Yennefer, that adds a lot of context to the games, or to the third Witcher game, because you get to see Yennefer again. Because the way that I ended up experiencing the Witcher world is I had played The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2. I had started The Witcher 3, but then I learned that the books existed and that the Witcher 3 actually built a lot on the events that happened in the books. So I stopped playing The Witcher 3, read all the books, and then went back to The Witcher 3. And it provided a lot of that kind of context that like you don't need to have to play The Witcher 3. You can play it without reading books. But I really enjoyed having a lot of that background. I just found that super cool. Yeah. What about you?
I think that what you say is interesting, and I think all the different characters, of course, in Bounds of Reason, not only the individual characters, but the races, so to speak, the dwarves and not races, but professions. Then sorcerer and so on is reflected, of course, in the game, and you. Actually, there is no elves in the Bounds of Reason when I think about it.
That's true.
Just meeting. They were told maybe they are not elves, or maybe I don't know. It's called they are called the Scoia'tael.
Scoia'tael, yeah. That's like a radical group of elves and dwarves that are fighting. They're kind of like rebels, essentially.
Yeah, like a guerrilla group, right, or something like that.
Yeah, because of how the humans have kind of made it's the Witcher world is a really interesting one because the elves are basically repressed and treated like subhumans and treated really poorly. And then the dwarves even are often thought of really poorly, even though the dwarves have better integrated into human society. There are like prominent dwarven figures, but there's still a lot of prejudices against dwarves even. So the Scoia'tael are a response to all of that prejudice and hate and abuse.
Yeah, that's also a perspective of the underdog, you could say. It seems like, at least. One thing which is very similar in Bounds of Reason compared to the games is the moral choices, because there is a lot to make. I'm just on my first playthrough. It's a big game, but I understand that I can make choices that affect the story in different ways, and also with because you meet Triss Marigold and then you meet Yennefer, so I suppose there is a kind of choice also there whom to
Right.
side on, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I think I think those who have made the Witcher 3 game seem to be very, very loyal to the core material.
Yeah, that's definitely how I felt when I played the game after reading the story. I thought that The Witcher 3 was such an excellent follow-up to the story. It carried a lot of plots through, it carried the characters through. And yeah, like it was such a like almost like a seamless transition to me. And through my experience, though, it would be interesting to go back and replay The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2 now that I have read the books. But I don't think, like, I think especially The Witcher 1 is kind of a very contained story outside of the big Witcher series. And then I think The Witcher 2 is still fairly contained. It pulls a little bit more from the books, but not as much as The Witcher 3, which draws heavily from the books. And yeah, I think the connection between the two just it really enhances the experience so much.
Yeah, I think the also the traveling part, because they travel a lot in Bounds of Reason. I don't think
Yes.
the short stories, there are better short stories when it comes to immersion, because there is so much plot and tensions going on between the characters. That's why it's a bit of I checked up the word farce. I don't know if you use that, but
Farce. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
theatrical comedy or comedy
Right.
theater.
Yeah.
So it has this kind of comedy vibe, you could say, to the story. But it's not so much immersion. But there are in other short stories and the Witcher Saga. And if you play the game, you get this immersion completely
Yeah.
with the sounds, going to the tavern, playing Gwent,
Yeah.
for example, things like that. Actually, I think maybe the game is a different thing, like we talked about on our first
Yep.
video, comparing books and video games and so on, different
Right.
kind of stories. But the game is really good at describing Sapkowski's writing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the game is The Witcher 3 was one of the most immersive games I've ever played. It like the sounds in the game, the visuals, like it was so easy to just get lost in that world. And I can't remember if I said this in our last recording, but one of the things that still strikes me about the game or is the sound of the wind in whenever you're in like a forested area and you hear the wind and the leaves and that sort of thing. That sound was so iconic for me in the games that whenever I hear wind through the trees outside in real life, I'm immediately thinking about The Witcher. And yeah, just like the immersiveness of that game was just incredible.
Is there a? I was thinking, in Witcher 3, I found a lot of books that you all can do play Witcher 3, and some of them have the name of either the short story or the books. So I found
Right.
The Last Wish, for example. Then I was thinking, I'm not sure I haven't met or I haven't done such a quest yet. Is there a Bounds of Reason quest in Witcher 3? I got curious on that.
Oh,
Because some quests
that's
have the name of the books or chapters, I know.
right. I'm not sure actually. That is a good question. I can't remember if I like. Yeah, I can't remember if the games kind of mention that or tie back to that at all. Um, I'd have to like look back through some of the quests
Yeah,
in the
just a
game.
thought that came up.
Yeah,
And because I think the structure of the storytelling in Witcher 3 is very similar to the book. And I listened to an interview with the developers, and they had the idea that you should be able to play Witcher, especially Witcher 3, then I suppose. I just started to play Witcher 2 or to test it, but it will have to wait a bit. The idea was that you come home from work or whatever you do, and then you have time to play through a story in Witcher 3, a short story, so to speak. So they have this idea of being similar with the books. Like Erickson, he's a short story writer, Sapkowski. I think you can see that in the Witcher Saga books as well.
Yeah, there definitely is that kind of storytelling style, and Sapkowski definitely will bounce between different perspectives, and he'll sometimes do interesting things where he there will be a major world event that happens, like a battle or something, and maybe the main characters have nothing to do with that battle, so instead he'll pick different points of view, like of a soldier, of a commander in the battle or something like that, to give the reader the info of that battle without necessarily having to draw the main characters into it, yet the main characters feel the effects of that battle. So he does some interesting kind of storytelling, like things like that. And I think he also experiments with storytelling throughout the books, which I think you'll probably pick on as you kind of continue to read them, and you'll see how he kind of plays around with how he tells stories, and how he frames narratives and different things like that. Like in some of the different books, he it's almost like he tells the story in slightly different ways. As to me, it felt kind of experimental, and it's not like it has nothing to do with the plot or anything like that, so it's not like a spoiler thing. But it's just kind of interesting how he plays around with that sort of storytelling, how he does storytelling.
Yeah, agree. One thing I didn't touch upon when we were more into the short story during the recording is that I suppose there are, because in the game, Witcher 3 game, I think it's obvious, I mean, it's in the books, of course, but obviously mythological reference, we talked about it before, to Slavic mythology, but also to Christianity. I think Christian occult teachings, more or less, with the pentagrams and all. I'm not an expert in that, but it feels like very Christian and cultist, you could say. Way of showing Christianity. It exists in other, stories from Eastern Europe, like it's what's it called? It's a Castlevania anime. Called. It's very dark, grim dark. It's called.
I think I know what you're talking
Castlevania.
about.
Maybe it's called.
Yeah, I think there is there's a game series and then also an animated series called Castlevania.
And they are fond of this Christian occultist.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and I found it now. It's in the 7th chapter of the short story, and it's because this knight Ike, maybe say, he is convinced that this landslide was because as a punishment, because they being such a dysfunctional gang on adventure, unholy and not godly, I would say. He basically says evil people like Geralt, for example, and other people he mentions.
Right.
And then he, it's on page 53 in my book. Do we have the same?
Yeah. Similar.
Yeah, maybe it's almost. It's the first page in chapter 7.
Yeah. So that's 53 for me as well.
Yeah, and then he says, if I just read a part of it, that the holy book says that the serpent, the foul dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, will come forth from the abyss. It sounds like the book of Revelation. more or less. For example.
Yeah, there are some like interesting tidbits of religion sprinkled in here and there, and like with the short story about the eternal flame, and then you'll also see it come up in the games, especially like the eternal flame priesthood or religion, or like that seems to be one of the big religions in the games. Yeah, it makes sense, like you pointing out its connection to kind of like fanatical Christian cults and like some of the stuff from like the Inquisition, times of the Inquisition, and like, you get some of those vibes, I think, from the way that Sapkowski describes it.
But yeah, and the Christianity, I'm not sure. Maybe I had a chat with Jay, contemplative reader. I don't know if you caught
I watched that. That was super fun.
Yeah, and so it would be interesting to talk about that with him. But there is obviously, it seems for me as, even though I'm raised in Christianity here, Protestantism, there is a much clearer duality, duality with evil and good in Christianity, if you compare with other faiths. I think Sapkowski captures that, but he questions if there is such a duality with monsters, and also that's the fact in the video game as well. When you act as Geralt, you can choose so much, but you can still choose whom you help and whom you side with.
Yeah, I do think there are a lot of instances of that in the game. I'm sure you've probably come across multiple already yourself. Have any of those stood out to you? Like as you're playing, have there been any of those big choices that really stood out to you?
You're meeting the what are they called? I'm looking at the board game table because I should get the monster cards because I don't remember the monster name. Yeah, here she is. Let's see what they are called as well. So, yeah, here. Yeah, and if you don't know who are watching this video, I'm learning the board game. It's difficult but fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It would be fun actually if we could play together somehow. It seems difficult, but actually you compete against each other as witchers. So to kill 3 monsters and to meditate and then kill a boss. So now, yeah. So if you might be a bit spoilerish if you haven't played Witcher 3, but the game is so old, so I suppose if you watched it so far, you have maybe played the game as well. See if you I have to do like this.
Oh yes, the 3 witches or hags.
Yeah, and here is the. I'm not supposed to paint this beauty.
Nice.
And
I love those.
There you can make a lot of choices. I don't remember exactly my choice now, speaking, but yeah, you can how you relate to these 3 witches. They remind me about it's called Nornor in Norse mythology.
Okay.
They are very similar. There you can make choices of what you do and whom to help, if you help the kids, for example, or not. And it affects the outcome of what happens with the village, I think.
Yep. You've completed that, because that's part of the Red Baron quest line. You've completed that quest line, right?
Yeah, that's done. I just met a guy called Roche.
Oh, nice.
It's a junior quest.
Yeah. Roche was a character in the second Witcher game. So he's like he was a really big so the second Witcher game is really interesting because it's kind of like 2 games because it's broken up into chapters. But at the end of the first chapter, you make a decision which puts you on radically different paths. And I've only actually played one of those paths. One day I would like to go back and play the other because it's almost like playing a whole separate game. But Roche is a main character in that game, and it was really fun to see him again in The Witcher 3. But going back to the Red Baron and the Hag's quest, I think there is a really cool moment in that quest line where you decide whether or not to like destroy this supposed monster for the hags, or to let it go, and that monster, that creature, then agrees to like save the children from the hags. Like I do remember that kind of dichotomy, or that like choice you had. Do you remember which one you did?
I think I killed the monster.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, so the outcome was not so, didn't feel so good. I felt a bit bad actually, so when I realized what it meant.
Because the game does some interesting things too, where you might be presented with a choice that feels one way, but the outcome later on could be the opposite of what you thought. So there are some situations where you can't always predict the consequence of your action in a good way. I think it kind of keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, and I think it's in a good way. This is a bit of another discussion, but that you can have a more streamlined story, or that you play character, like if you play Fallout or anything like that, the story is not so tight. It's not so structured, so to speak, because you form the story. But in Witcher, there is a clear story, almost like a book, but still you can affect the story with your choices. And I think that's actually a great way of playing games. Maybe better when it's free form. So, but that's my opinion on this.
Yeah, I mean, the way that The Witcher 3 told its story, I think was just so, like a masterpiece. Like it's one of the best games I've played because of its storytelling.
I haven't been to. I mean, I've read about Kaer Mohan in, especially in Blood of Elves, because I'm just in the beginning of Time of Contempt. But I didn't have such a great perception of Kaer Mohan through the short stories, if I remember right. I think it's just mentioned. Actually, I got a more clear picture. It's difficult for you to relate to, but with the board game, because then you can go to Kaer Mohan or other places where witchers do their training and train up your skills. But in Witcher 3, when you start, you're at Kaer Mohan, as I understand it.
Right, in that kind of dream sequence.
Yeah.
When you're, I did really like kind of the visuals of Kaer Morhen in the game, and it matched kind of what I had pictured from the book. Because in the Blood of the Elves, they do spend quite a bit of time at the beginning there with Ciri, which was it was cool to kind of go back in the game and go to that place, and in some ways, that dream sequence you have at the very beginning of the Witcher 3 is from that part in the Blood of Elves, because you're at Kaer Morhen with Ciri training her exactly like she was in the beginning of that book. So it's kind of like a really cool, you're having a flashback to a moment from the book. It's kind of cool.
It seems like a very daunting practice when she jumps on the
Oh my god. Yeah, they put her through the ropes.
I feel a bit nauseous when she jumps around, if she is going to fall or not. In the book she actually falls a lot, and I think it's Jennifer who tells them to be more gentle to her, because she gets a lot of bruises and so on.
Yeah, because she hasn't undertaken the mutations that the Witchers have, and so she doesn't have those extra benefits, but is going through the same training that they go through. So it's like, remember, she's a human, not a Witcher kind of thing.
It's a bit
Yeah.
funny. It's
Mhm.
I think she reminds me a little bit. Did you read Game of Thrones, by the way?
Mhm. Yeah.
She reminds me a little bit about Arya
Yes, very
in
much so.
the Blood of Elves. They are
Yeah.
friends. I heard Sapkowski and George R. R. Martin too. So, I don't know.
It, that that would that doesn't surprise me. They Yeah, there are some interesting similarities, I think, between the two series. Of course, the Witcher, I think, has a lot more fantastical elements with the monsters and the magic.
Mm.
I mean, there are some of that in Game of Thrones, but not to the same extent, I think, as the Witcher. But that's cool that they're friends.
And that's a, I mean, the more we speak, the more things come up in my mind. And
Yeah.
the writing of Sapkowski being more related to folk tales rather than, epic fantasy, if you
Hmm.
understand me right. I think that shows up in his ability to put in philosophy just in a short 5 or 6 lines, like we talking about who's the monster or the equilibrium,
Right.
for example. And that's similar with the folk tales where the stories are often very, very short, but they can give a lot of
Hmm.
wisdom, so to speak, to the
Right.
reader. You don't need to read 700 pages. You can read 20 pages and get a lot of things out of it intellectually, so to speak.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
Um, we are reaching the hour mark,
Yeah.
so I think we should round and sum it up a bit. We've
Sure.
been trying to talk about our impressions of Bounce of Reason, the short story in Sapkowski's book, and also related to the video game experience a little bit. So I'm very curious and we are very curious to hear your thoughts. Please comment and please add your perspectives. If you read Bounds of Reason, maybe you have another take on the story than we had. So I'm happy to hear that too from you. I'm actually reading another book by Sapkowski now as well. That's the Hussite trilogy. Do you know about
Right.
that, Rick? Do you know
I
about that?
know about it. The first book is The Tower of Fools, I think.
Yes.
I think we have it, but I haven't read it. It's a historical fiction, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be curious to hear what you think because it's one that I've like it's been on the shelf, but I just haven't taken the time to pick it up and try it myself. Do you
Yeah.
like it?
Yeah. I actually, I it. I think the Witcher saga so far. To me, I enjoyed Blood of Elves, but I thought
Hmm.
the punchy effects that are in the short stories were lacking in Blood of Elves, probably
Hmm.
because it's a saga.
Right.
But I didn't get the what you say, the adrenaline as I got out of short stories,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you could say. But I think in the beginning of the Tower of Fools, you really get the feeling of this very tight storytelling. So,
Okay.
and you told me
Cool.
that time of content will catch up with that a bit. So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, the Witcher series is a 5 book series, so I think, takes a bit more time to build up that momentum. But yeah, there's going to be some adrenaline pumping moments in the Witcher series. But that's cool to hear about the Tower of Fools. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I can really recommend that so far. It's also
Cool.
long. It's 3 books, and but the books are very long.
Right.
So they are longer, I think, than the Witcher books,
Okay.
except the single books. So, do you want to add something, Rick, to what we have been talking about?
No, I mean, it was a lot of fun chatting about this short story and kind of the Witcher world in general, both the books and the games. I think I read these quite a while ago. I reread, of course, this short story before we chatted, but it's made me really want to reread the whole series again because it is quite a big and complex series, and I'm sure a second read through would reveal a lot, especially now that I have played the game. And it's just been fun to hear your journey in The Witcher as well, and remember all the things that I really enjoyed about both the game and the series. So for those who out there who have maybe read the books but not played the games, or played the games but not read the books, I would definitely encourage you to do the other, because they build off each other in a lot of really great ways, and it adds a lot to the experience.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Rick, and thank
Thank you.
you, all of you who have been watching. So see you later. Bye.